Welcome to the latest episode of the MMA Vivisection. This is Zane Simon, joined as always by Connor Rebish of BloodyElbow.com. And we are here to talk about UFC 203, this weekend's pay-per-view headlined by Stipe Miocic versus Alistair Overeem, co-main by Fabrício Werdum versus Travis Browne. Again, for some reason, you have to excuse me if I'm a little spitty and weird. I've been sick a few days here. And, it's much different than my normal spitty weirdness, so I just want to make that clear. Yeah. And then the people's main event, CM Punk versus Mickey Gall. I know that that's the fight that all the fans are really tuning in for, and actually it may end up being a fight that like an extra 200,000 or 300,000 people tune in for just to see.
I think it will. I mean, if you look at the internet numbers, that sounds like I've never looked at the internet before. The internet numbers suggest like for embedded videos or preview videos on YouTube, Overeem, they've got like 100,000 something, and like CM Punk is like 900,000. Like the guy is pulling more interest, and and I think it's even from hardcore fans, like a lot of people like us, and like and people who basically watch shows like this have a sort of like a disinterested affect about it. But even that is kind of like, it's like everyone who saw Batman versus Superman. They're like, yeah, I heard it sucks. Got to go see why. Like, it's a train wreck you got to watch. It's a weird thing. And it may not be a train wreck, but the feeling is that it's just an odd fight. And that's apparently drawing people's attention, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't care about how CM Punk does in the UFC at all. Like, no part of me is interested in whether or not he succeeds at cage fighting. But I will be very dedicatedly interested in every fight he gets, because each one is going to be a stupid spectacle. Like, and that interests me. Like, I don't care if he's successful or not. It's like, I don't care if Bob Sapp is out winning fights or not,
Yeah.
I don't care if he's trying or not, but every Bob Sapp fight I'm probably going to watch, because it's going to be this stupid, just absolute shit show.
And unlike many people who say, I don't care if CM Punk wins, for you and I don't think that actually means, I hope CM Punk loses terribly.
Oh, yeah, no.
A lot of people seem to be bearing a very strange grudge towards this man.
Well, I mean, it's not that strange in that, like, he's got this whole thing going on of, like, yeah, I'm just the try-hard, blue-collar boy who's going out there to live his dream, and I'm working hard, and you all just don't understand how my passion works. It's like, dude, you're a fucking millionaire. You're a millionaire playing with yourself. Like, that is what this is.
It's like my hatred for Paige Van Zandt.
Yeah.
Like, it's not her fault. You know what I mean? And if I were in her position, I would happily accept the same opportunities.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go off too much and, like, campaign against her. Because I recognize that. I'm like, I can talk about her with friends, like, I don't want to hang out with this person, but I'm not going to go out there and be like, destroy Paige Van Zandt, because then I'm the asshole.
Yeah. And it's a little interesting, too. Like, I wrote up an article about, like, him, he had some media backlash the other day where he's talking, like, people are interested in whether he should get approved by the Ohio Commission. That was a big thing. And, he's saying, like, they don't care about me. It's just bitter journalists, shit like that. And the weird thing is that, like, CM Punk's career is really a good opportunity for people to see just how far money and prestige alone can get you in MMA.
Yeah.
Because it can get you in the UFC and it get you a pay-per-view slot. Like, that is the only thing driving this.
Yeah, and it can get you past the need for commission standards.
Exactly.
I think Ohio standards call for 5 amateur fights, or like a pro combat sports background of some kind, like a career background, like in wrestling or kickboxing. And CM Punk didn't have any of that.
Exactly. Along the way, we're gonna learn, like, how much does being famous and having money buy you in this sport? Because if it were like, if it were the NFL, say, it would get you like the Brock Lesnar team tryout, where he got to try out for the Minnesota Vikings and not make the team. They weren't about to actually give a slot on the team to some guy just because he's rich and useless. And that's something that we're in combat sports, we don't have that structure. So I that's like the big interesting thing to me for CM Punk is like, how much is he going to really expose about how much people are willing to bend over backwards to give a guy like him an open door to the sport.
Mm-hmm. But aside from CM Punk, there are a lot of other legitimately interesting fights in this card, even with the now 3 fights that we have lost to injuries, visa issues, and sickness.
And they were all prelim fights, thankfully. So we didn't lose any big main card bouts.
They were all fairly good ones, unfortunately. But
they were. But a very good pay-per-view card stayed intact, and we're going to go through the whole thing. Let's dive in before we spend too much time bullshitting about CM Punk or about the rest of the card. We have the whole show is dedicated to bullshitting about the rest of the card.
Sure.
So, first fight of the night is an opening lightweight bout: Drew Dober versus Jason Gonzalez. What do you think about this fight?
I like it. I think Jason Gonzalez is a good fighter for whom there is not a ton of promise as far as prospect status goes. And so I don't really have a problem with matching him with a guy like Drew Dober. Dober, I think, is more capable now than ever of slotting really nicely into a gatekeeper status because he's not just tough and tireless. He's actually getting more skillful and expanding his abilities. Mm-hmm. The wrestling and top control he showed against Scott Holtzman was really unprecedented. He's always been a guy who will go for takedowns, but he really, really improved that ability. The timing on his takedowns, the finishes, like the way that he was changing angles and finishing those shots was really, really impressive, especially because Holtzman is typically very difficult to take down. So I liked that. I really liked seeing that from Dober. Team Elevation seems to be doing really good things for him, just as they did for who's the guy who fought Dan Hooker. Like looked so much better with Team Elevation behind him. They seem to be a really rapidly improving camp. And Jason Gonzalez is like an action fighter. He throws good volume. He's very aggressive. He mixes up his shots really well, punch kick combinations. But he mostly kind of comes forward and throws combos. And that leaves him vulnerable to takedowns. And I think with Dober's newfound success in that realm, that's going to be the big thing for him in this fight. Gonzalez has some submissions, but most of them were at least started from him being on his back. He's a little too willing to play that game and a little too easy to put in that position in the first place. So I'm going to say Drew Dober by decision.
See, I will say one thing, not to be nitpicky, but well, that's why we're here, nitpicky.
Sure. Yeah.
First of all, the whole like Scott Holtzman being hard to take down. Drew Dober is not a good wrestler, but Drew Dober was literally like the first guy with any wrestling game at all that Scott Holtzman ever faced. So there's some skewing there, but Dober did look good. I'm picking Gonzalez here, and the reason I'm doing that is that, first of all, size difference. Dober is 5 inches shorter than Jason Gonzalez and 5 inches with a 5-inch reach disadvantage. Mm. And Dober came up as primarily a kickboxer, as a Muay Thai styled kickboxer. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be at least somewhat willing to trade on the feet.
Sure.
And he might get chewed up there just trying to find his way inside against somebody like Gonzalez who throws a lot of volume. Like Gonzalez doesn't put a lot of snap on his punches, but he does a good job staying outside and staying mobile. Like it's the kind of like I'm not sitting down on much so that I don't get caught up falling into the clinch. And when he does, he's got a really nicely powerful clinch game. Like he hits hard. That's where he hits hard is when he's in the clinch. Mm-hmm. And if Dober's wrestling, even if his wrestling is effective, like I just don't know how much I trust him to be a great top control winner. And like this wrestling game is kind of like he's been a willing wrestler in the past, but he's never been a good one. and his push towards it, it may be one of those things where it's like, this is kind of a new avenue that he's not really that technically deep out of, and he's not a finisher in any way. So against somebody like Gonzalez, who is a very decent submission finisher, who's a very decent strike, finisher on the feet, it just feels like Dober's going to give him too many opportunities, too many places where he might hang out. If he's not successful getting takedowns, there's a big chance Dober gets chewed up inside. And if he is finishing takedowns, there's a chance he just kind of lays on Gonzalez and lets Gonzalez submit him. So I'm picking Gonzalez here, and I'm picking him by submission. I think he's going to force Dober to shoot, and then Dober's going to get caught up in the guard and get triangled.
All right. Those are all fair points. I will say, now that you mentioned Gonzalez's clinch game, I think the clinch exchanges in this fight will be very entertaining.
Yeah. It'd be if Dober can't get him down and they have to spend a lot of time hanging out against each other in the clinch, that could be the best point of this fight.
They were very entertaining in the Holtzman fight as well. Dober is throwing some good elbows, but being Drew Dober, taking some good elbows as well.
Yeah, because Dober, he works in the kind of volume that leaves him open to getting hit, and he has no power. Dober is the quintessential light on his feet, no power striker, high volume guy. So odds on this, Dober is the favorite, -160 to -185. Gonzalez +153 down to +135. That's fine. Gonzalez coming in on kind of short notice. Not, Dober's much more experienced. There's definitely Dober could have a big gas tank edge. So if this goes longer than a round and a half, then it could become more and more Dober's fight as the fight goes on. I'm not surprised to see him being the favorite, but I think Gonzalez being a finisher and Dober not being a finisher and Gonzalez being way bigger, there's a good chance for an upset there.
Dober could Homer Simpson Gonzalez like he did to Tony Sims.
Yeah, he could, very, very much so. And that brings us to Yancy Medeiros versus Sean Spencer, welterweight bout, the final fight pass bout. And man, this is going to be a weird-ass fight.
This fight, actually.
I like it, too, but it's going to be this, janky kickboxing bout to end all janky kickboxing bouts. Yancy's got this whole weird, any strike at any time thing going on without necessarily a ton of setup or completion on that. He's always just sort of oh, there's a great 2-punch combo. And then a minute of you bouncing around on the outside. And there's a totally different 3-punch combo. And a kick. And then
a spinning back kick.
Yeah, spinning back kick. And and Spencer, on the other hand, really, when he came up in the UFC, he looked like he was trying to find his place as that high volume, low power outside striker. And then I think he just figured out how hard that was to make work. And so he's tried to sit down on shots and be a more power striking guy. And the defense and the chin aren't there to support that, and maybe even not the cardio. It just might take more out of him to throw big shots. And because of that, I have to pick Medeiros here. Spencer, he faded so badly against a very shot Mike Pyle. And I realize that we all love Mike Pyle, and Mike Pyle's a game dude. But Mike Pyle, that was such an ugly loss. Spencer had him, dead to rights early, and then just faded off the face of the earth. And Pyle was able to come back. And Medeiros, we've seen in his last fight, in that stupid slobber knocker he had against Francisco Trinaldo that was just amazing. Medeiros is tough as hell. You're not going to put him away.
Slobber knocker implies that both men's slobber was being knocked around. So it was really just Yancy's.
It was just Yancy, but Yancy is tough as hell. He's creative enough that I think he can catch Spencer looking in this new look power striking thing he's trying that's not necessarily that effective. And he's going to stick around. Even if Medeiros is hurt, even if he's tired, he's going to be in the thick of things trying to make something happen all fight. And I don't know that I trust that of Spencer. Oh, crap. I just realized I misset this up, so nobody's watching live. So you should take away this fight, and I will see if I can fix that.
Okay, all right, I will do that. Sean Spencer and Yancy Medeiros. I like this fight because I'm not sure I ever really saw a moment where Sean Spencer was he kind of discovered that he couldn't be a volume striker. I think he has just over time learned when to mix in his power shots. I don't really see him necessarily as a guy who is now always trying to come forward or always trying to sit down and knock a guy's head off. I think he just understands the value now more than ever of hurting a guy when he has the chance. I still don't think he's a very powerful puncher, but I do think it's a credit to his ability in setting up shots and using his jab to distract somebody that he has basically badly hurt or knocked down all four of his last four opponents. Alex Garcia, Paulo Thiago, Gall, Pendred, a fight he should have won, and Mike Pyle, a fight he was winning until the point that he lost. And he's really never lost a lopsided fight. I think the only one that was, at least in recent memory, that was hard for him was the Rafael Natal fight, and it was a middleweight fight for his debut. Other than that, he's often had trouble really putting his stamp on fights, but he's also never really been blown out of the water. Yancy Medeiros has been blown out of the water. He has also lost some close fights. And a lot of the fights when Yancy Medeiros wins, it is kind of the way Mike Pyle won against Sean Spencer last time. So that's what gives me pause here, is that I can totally see Yancy Medeiros being sneakily powerful and sneakily good. He's got a good understanding of his distance and his range sometimes. He has like these flashes of brilliance where he'll throw a good three-punch combination and each punch sets up the next, and he steps into it really nicely, and he just rips your head off. And then he has other times where he doesn't know what he's doing. I think tactically Medeiros has an idea of how to beat you. He kind of knows how to win in exchanges. He has no idea how to win a fight. So he either hits you with that good shot, wins a very narrow decision, or he's losing, and often kind of badly. So I'm going to go with Sean Spencer just because I like his consistency. I'm going with Sean Spencer's volume. I think that's a really big thing here. I don't know that Yancy Medeiros is so dangerous that Sean Spencer can slow down a bit in the third round, and it's not like Medeiros is going to suddenly come after him and destroy him. That's not really his game. He's not going to suddenly press the action for any extended amount of time. So I think that if Spencer does get tagged, and he probably will, that he will be able to survive. He's pretty good at surviving. He tends to get hurt a lot, and he usually doesn't get finished. And Sean Spencer throws a shitload of volume. He throws round-winning volume, and that's why he wins those close fights. He throws, I think, on average, like 17 shots a minute, something like that. Very high pace, 200 kind of strikes. That's not a pace that Medeiros can keep up with. So I could totally see Medeiros clipping him and taking his head off. But I think Sean Spencer's going to win a close decision.
Couple of things before we get to the odds, really quick. I forgot, this is Yancy Medeiros' first welterweight fight, which could be a very good thing for him.
Could be, that's right.
In terms of his own volume, because he went from middleweight to lightweight, and one of those, why would you do this? You have this massive, massive frame that is obviously way too big for lightweight, and you were a middleweight. You were comfortable fighting at 185 pounds.
Yeah, who knows?
But, I think I also I just don't trust Spencer's athleticism. I think that's the big thing for me. And I don't trust Medeiros' necessarily either, but I trust Spencer's less.
Yeah, I will say a big thing here, too, is that Medeiros is dangerous, but Medeiros is also extremely hittable. He has virtually no defense to speak of. And so when Spencer does throw his jab, when he lets the right hand go, it's going to be more like fighting Paulo Thiago than it is like fighting Mike Pyle. Even Mike Pyle, I think, is less hittable than Yancy Medeiros.
Granted, that does not seem possible, but it could
be. Granted, Medeiros is more dangerous than a guy like Paulo Thiago with his hands, but
so we're basically on where is he between Mike Pyle and Paulo Medeiros fit into that gray area?
Yeah, basically.
All right, the odds on this fight: Sean Spencer is the underdog, plus 120 to plus 100. Yancy Medeiros the favorite, minus 122 to minus 149. Close odds for a close fight. I expect it to be kind of a weird fight, frankly. I could easily see this being a funky split decision.
Sure.
Where we've seen like both guys get hurt, both guys and maybe Spencer land more shots in a round but get dropped in that round, and some really controversial scoring. I would not be surprised for a crazy split decision out of that fight, and I probably wouldn't suggest betting on it in any reasonable way.
Yep, I'm with you.
And that brings us to the opening Fox Sports 1 prelim, CB Dollaway versus Francimar Barroso.
Boy, what a fight, huh? Honorary middleweight matchup here, Zane. Truly an honorary middleweight matchup. Dollaway's moving up in weight. Probably a good idea. Do something a little different. He had a really unexpected climb and then a really precipitous fall from grace in the last few years. But it's worth remembering, like, his first two losses in the UFC were knockouts. He was submitted by Tom Lawler and Amir Sadola. He was not always a guy who was like impossible to finish or who was going to destroy all top opposition. There was a little bit of element of good, fortunate matchmaking in the wins that he had. And then I think some of the problems he's always had were just kind of still there against guys like Machida, Bisping, and Marquardt, where he's a little too hittable. He's a little slow on his feet. I still think the best Dollaway we've ever seen was the Dollaway who beat Tim Boetsch and then got robbed of the decision. He poked Tim Boetsch in the eyes a million times, but aside from that, he was long. He moved his feet a little better. He threw his combinations nicely. Was good. And then that kind of went away. I know there's been some coaching changes at the Power MMA team, so he's probably trying to find his feet with the new coaching style, just like Bader had to. But, against Francimar Barroso, I think it's a pretty forgiving matchup for CB Dollaway at his light heavyweight debut. My secret hope is that he will show a little more durability, not cutting weight anymore. Maybe he'll put on a little muscle and be a little stronger. That's really Barroso's one big advantage. He's very strong. He's a pretty big light heavyweight, not necessarily in height, but just in build. He's very solidly put together. And he has given some tough fights to a lot of decent fighters because of that. So if he can hit Dollaway with a shot, he can hurt him. If he can get him in the clinch, he might be able to rough him up. And on the ground, of course, he's got submission grappling ability. But really, Dollaway is an all-American wrestler. Dollaway is a good submission grappler. And Dollaway should be the more technical striker. Really, the only issue here is his chin. And I'm going to go ahead and just bank on the fact that he will be able to protect it against a very slow opponent like Francimar Barroso. So I'm saying CB Dollaway by, a late TKO.
Not only slow, but incredibly low volume.
Yeah.
If you don't push Barroso, if you don't, Nikita Krylov him into action, he will throw one body kick per 2 minutes. That's his fighting style.
Boy, it would be a shame if he Machida CB Dollaway, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Barroso would be happy.
Yeah. I think you gotta take the assumption that Dollaway, that a guy who has really only massively failed against the elite at middleweight, we talk about his recent losses, and it's to there's Nate Marquardt. Never mind. I was gonna say I forgot about Nate, but Michael Bisping and Lyoto Machida. And then, you go back to Jared Haman and
it's
Mark
not like
Munoz.
Dollaway looked bad in the Marquardt fight. It's not like Marquardt made him look silly. It's the kind of win that Marquardt is still capable of getting. You get too aggressive, and he catches you coming in.
Dollaway's had this clear progression where he was, getting better, improving things, putting things together. He had this nice run of wins. Then he climbed back up to the top of the mountain and got shown the door. Mm-hmm. And I still, Barroso is not even climbing the mountain at light heavyweight. And it's not even a mountain. Light heavyweight is basically a cliff and then an incline. Like it's like, it's like a 5% grade and then a sheer cliff, and that's how the light heavyweight division operates. And he's not even really marching up the incline at all. Not to any recognizable point. So Dollaway should be able to come out there and just be, press him against the fence. Barroso is very willing to just be ground out and be outworked in a slow grind, out wrestle him, and kind of beat him up. If he can't get takedowns, if he can't establish any kind of physical game on Barroso, and it becomes just this pure kickboxing match, then shit could get ugly. Like that could be a exceptionally ugly fight.
I hope that happens. I want to see these two guys in a kickboxing match.
Yeah, I kind of hope it happens too. I'm picking Dollaway. I don't think it's a safe pick. I don't think Dollaway is showing himself to be the safest bet in the world, especially going up to a new weight class. But he's the fighter, like, you should pick him, but you may not want to bet on him, kind of thing,
Sure.
He is the favorite, minus 180 to minus 200, and Barroso, the underdog, plus 165 to plus 145. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, definitely not bettable at those odds.
Yeah. I think that's exactly how it should be. Dollaway's gotten knocked out more than a few times. He tends to, when he loses, he tends to get stopped. And he's even been stopped by guys like Jared Haman. And, when you've got that on your record, you can't be like, there's no way this dude, Francimar Barroso beats you.
Mm-mm.
So.
Especially when it's going up a division. That
brings us to Kyle Magalhães versus Brad Tavares. And a true middleweight fight. A real, honest-to-God, dyed-in-the-wool, no faux middleweight, no honorary, just real good old-fashioned, strangely limited middleweight 185-pound fighters.
Yeah, Magalhães has been out for a while. He was briefly... Is it my go? It is my go.
No, it's me. But
oh, I'm sorry. Please
take it. I was happy to let you roll with it, but since you've asked, it's me. Magalhães, yeah, both guys have been sidelined for a while by random injuries. Tavares, especially so, following his KO loss to Robert Whittaker in May of last year. He was forced out of a bout with Chris Camozzi in August with a rib injury. And I believe he may have had an injury after that Whittaker fight as well. If not, he just took like a year off after that loss to kind of reconfigure. And this is a weird fight to me because at one point I was a willing believer that Brad Tavares was not bad. Like that he was better than that he was headed towards the top of the division. I think that stretch he had between losing to Aaron Simpson and losing to Yoel Romero, where he beat Dong Yang, Tom Watson, Ricky Fukuda, Bubba McDaniel, and then Lorenz Larkin, especially that Lorenz Larkin fight where he just kind of beasted Larkin.
Mm-hmm.
And it really looked like, oh, he's finally figured out he can't just sit outside and be this low-power point kickboxer who just waits for a chance to let an opponent hit him really hard. Like, even Bubba McDaniel, like, kind of put it on Brad Tavares at points in that fight. I feel like that was, like, the moment where he reassessed and was like, oh, I can't fight Lorenz Larkin that way. I got to go out and actually be an overwhelming fighter. And he was, very much so. And then ever since then, shit's just gone haywire for him. Like, he faced Yoel Romero, who treated him the way Yoel Romero treats people.
He was relatively competitive with Romero. More so, it was not quite Derek Brunson levels of competitive loss, not quite Tim Kennedy, but he did okay at portions of that fight. He got ragdolled. It was the first time he'd ever been effortlessly taken down so many times.
Yeah, like Yoel Romero, almost everybody does okay in portions against Yoel Romero, honestly. Like, unless he just knocks you out immediately.
That's true.
Lyoto Machida did fine for a while against Yoel Romero, until Yoel Romero was like, I just want to win this fight right now. I'm just going to take you down and beat the hell out of you, and then we'll be done. So,
Yep.
And then he got knocked out by Tim Boetsch, and then he got knocked out by Robert Whitaker, and in between he had a completely listless win over Nate Marquardt. And Kyle Magalhães, like, I don't know. Magalhães is just, he's exactly the kind of there's no upside to fighting Kyle Magalhães at all, because he is the Lorenz Larkin version of Brad Tavares, basically. Like, he's all overwhelming force and no technique. There's no real striking technique. There's not even necessarily a lot of wrestling technique. He's a good grappler. He's a good dynamic, sub-hunting grappler. Not a position guy, but the kind of guy that you leave him an opening and he will jump on it. He will climb your back. He will do whatever he can to find his way to a submission. But he tends to just rely on raw power and aggression starting out in fights. And I'm not sure that won't get him a win over Brad Tavares. I don't know that there are a lot of fighters like that Brad Tavares has faced and beaten. Most of the guys he's beat have either been much less aggressive or just been kind of physically underwhelming. Guys like Tom Watson and Bubba McDaniel and Lorenz Larkin at middleweight, none of those guys are like imposing powerhouses. And Dong Yi Yang is very much, and Ricky Fukuda are very much kind of like throw one strike every minute, try and grind you fighters. Otherwise, guys like Boetsch, Whitaker, Romero, even Aaron Simpson have beat him. So I kind of think that Magalhães can just go out and swarm him and hurt him and put a stamp on him early and maybe even choke him out. So I think I'm picking Kyle Magalhães here to continue making me feel like Brad Tavares is far, far, far more underwhelming than I want him to be.
I still have a little faith in Brad Tavares based mostly on level of skill. I think there is a oh, I can hear my voice through your mic. What's going on here, Zane? We're muted. There's a pretty big difference in skill between guys like Magalhães and guys like Robert Whitaker and Yoel Romero, and even a guy like Tim Boetsch in terms of experience. Tim Boetsch always has that edge, and Tim Boetsch was not winning that fight at the point that he knocked Brad Tavares out. In fact, he was losing pretty badly. And then against Nate Marquardt, I can't really complain because I think that's probably the right approach to take to make Nate Marquardt is like stay on the outside and kick his legs. Just Tarek Safedine him and win a comfortable decision. And that's what Brad Tavares did. Magalhães is very aggressive. He's powerful. He comes out from the opening bell and he swarms you. He throws these wild punches, good left hook off of his right hand, grabs the clinch, smashes you with a knee. And if he can, he'll get you against the fence. But like you said, Zane, everything Magalhães does is power over technique. Everything. Even his submission grappling. I know he's a pretty has some accomplishments as a jiu-jitsu player, but even that is like a lot of muscling things around. Like I'm recalling his fight with Carlos Vemela where he went for 16,000 guillotines before finally finishing Vemela later in the fight. And they were all bad arm-in guillotines. He kept dropping to his back against a wrestler over and over to go for these chokes that he didn't have secured. And, just try to squeeze his head off. And I think that's kind of just Kyle Magalhães in a nutshell. He'll try to squeeze your head off, and if you let him, he'll do it. I think Tavares is going to come in here fairly focused and determined to get a win. I think he's going to keep Magalhães at range as best as he can. I think he's going to kick his legs. He's going to keep him on the end of the jab. He's going to move a lot, and he is going to remind us that Kyle Magalhães is just not a winner of decisions. If Magalhães can't get him out of there early, and again, only guys like Robert Whitaker, I think, are really capable of doing that with any consistent ability. If he can't get him out of there early, I think he's going to lose a decision, and I don't think it's actually going to be that close after the first few minutes. So I like Brad Tavares by decision.
Brad Tavares, sorry, I unmute just to cough, but Brad Tavares I think he's a smart pick. I think my problem is that, like, classically, and like the Nate Marquardt Brad Tavares, the Brad Tavares that I've seen so often that I don't like, just seems to coast through fights in a way that's not even conducive to necessarily round winning, but just in the, like, I'm not, like, I've attacked you a few times, and now I'm just not going to throw anything serious at you. Like, I'm just going to throw things that score a bit and he really, like I say, even with Bubba McDaniel, like, he just let him hang around to the point that McDaniel was able to put a couple of scares in it. And that's the problem for me, is that I see a fighter who's just, he will, at his worst, he will let anyone hang out with him and give them an opportunity to really hurt him. And I think Magalhães is just a little too purely, like, power and aggression tuned to do that against.
Is it kind of weird that Brad Tavares is a product of Ray Sefo?
Yeah, I mean, like, you can see, like, these fundamental basics of the kickboxing game that, like, Sefo, like, established, and then just nothing else.
I mean, I guess that's how it works. Like, you can't impose your style on someone. You can impose your technique.
Yeah.
And he's done that. He looks like a Ray Sefo's techniques, but very, very different kind of fighter.
Yeah, very. All right, the odds on that fight, Tavares is the favorite, minus 181 to minus 200. Kyle Magalhães, plus 175 to plus 145. And that brings us to Nick Lentz versus Michael McBride.
Yeah, I was really excited to see Mairbek Taisimov. I thought the matchup with Nick Lentz was a great one. A good step up for him. Not too tough, but one who could test him. A tough guy like Nick Lentz is always he's a gatekeeper. Like, that's what he does. And I thought that was a great fight. Taisimov had visa issues yet again. I guess just being from Dagestan, or like in Hadživic's case, is Hadživic from Bosnia?
Yeah, I believe the Bosnian bomber. I think he's
right. It's like, just being from that part of the world, the U.S. government's like, give us a few weeks before we approve you, and then so that sucks. But Michael McBride steps in on short notice. I think it's going to be a hard type of fight for a guy like Michael McBride to win, especially on very short notice. He basically found out a week in advance that he was fighting one of the most experienced fighters in the UFC. Nick Lentz has been fighting for ages. He has fought a lot of very good fighters, lost to some, but beat a lot of them too. And he's a pretty solid striker. He pushes a really good pace, and he's a very controlling wrestler with both in the clinch and on the ground. Michael McBride is a submission specialist, and it's always hard to pick a guy who's a submission specialist against a good, experienced fighter in his debut. So I'm saying Lentz. I think he may actually submit McBride after exhausting him on the floor. So I'm going to go with Lentz by third round submission.
Yeah, I like that pick too. Especially because McBride is not like he's just a submission specialist. He's coming out of I want to say Iowa, maybe, with a high school wrestling background. So he's very much a top control submission specialist, which means that it's not even like, Lentz is going to take him down and suddenly he'll be in his guard and there might be some danger there. It's like, no, McBride's going to need to get back up, get his own takedowns, and then work for submissions.
Yeah, and it's not even, again, like, the style isn't even as much a problem as the experience. Like, McBride, let's see, I actually have the numbers here from my Sherdog preview. Lentz has been fighting for almost 3 times as long, and he has exactly 4 times as many fights as Michael McBride. Yeah,
and I watched Michael McBride's most recent Bellator fight that he had, and he's just like, there's nothing in there that looks exceptionally athletic or like explosive or dynamic or anything that's just like really gonna wreck your world and be like, oh my god, this dude. Like, he's just a patient, controlling submission specialist. And he's kind of funky and clunky and wooden on his feet. And that's it. And that seemed like a complete setup for Nick Lentz to just bully him all over the place. So Nick Lentz seemed like a pretty safe pick there. Lentz is the favorite, minus 398 to minus 450. Michael McBride, plus 348 to plus 285. And that's a little generous to me. I mean, I realize once you're like at minus...
It does feel kind of close.
Yeah, like it's just like, this should be like a minus 700 fight. People don't like Nick Lentz. They think that he's like the world's most boring grinder. But he's honestly a dude who usually if he's got you down or controlling you, he's usually working people over like the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
He's much more of the kind of guy who's just chipping away at somebody the whole fight if he's controlling them. And, you're looking at who he's lost to, and Mark, other than a good Mark Bocek at the time, it's Charles Oliveira, Chad Mendez, Evan Dunham, Charles Oliveira again. And, like, you have to go a long way to find a bad Nick Lentz loss.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't see McBride being the dude to create some massive upset here. That brings us to the prelim main event, Jéssica Eye versus Bethe Correia. And I am pretty much betting on Bethe Correia winning this purely by not being Jéssica Eye. Like, there has been this long-standing, like, Jéssica Eye is really pretty good. Jéssica Eye can, like, do stuff, and she's, she's a good kickboxer, and she's sort of like the prototype of a good fighter to watch in highlights, and then any actual round of hers you watch, you're just like, what the hell is this?
Mm-hmm.
And Correia, she's not a great athlete, and she's not even the most well-rounded fighter in the world. She's not like some stellar grappler or wrestler. But she is hyper consistent with her boxing game and her pressure boxing game. And I feel like at this point, anything consistent is just going to be terrible for Jéssica Eye. Like, that just kind of seems how it is. Like, whether it's getting out kickboxed by Alexis Davis or just taken down at will by Sarah McMahon and Juliana Pena, or be outboxed by Miocic Tate. Like, anybody who comes with any kind of approach where they're willing to sit down and do it round after round, Jéssica Eye's like, whoa, I got no answer for this. And I feel like Bethe Correia can very much do that. Like, I might be able to stop her, but honestly, other than that awesome arm triangle submission she had against Zoila Frausto way back in 2012 and ripping Leslie Smith's ear off, it's been since 2011 against somebody named Ashley Nee since Jéssica Eye stopped anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not picking Jéssica Eye by stoppage, and then I'm not picking her to be nearly consistent enough to just win a decision.
Yeah, there are a couple things wrong with Jéssica Eye, and like when you, again, if you look at her highlights, you're like, this woman has some good abilities. She can throw some good punch combinations. She seems to have some good snap. She's even got a little bit of tricky submission skill. Like, if you just see glimpses of what Jéssica Eye does, she's a good clinch fighter against the fence in like 5-second snippets. And then you watch her entire fights, and there's just something off. It's like a lack of focus, or maybe too much focus on tiny little things. Maybe too much aggression. She zones in on something and just attacks it. And also there's a certain lack of technique there too with Jéssica Eye. She's here's something that seems indicative of what I'm saying. When Jéssica Eye gets somebody in the clinch, she immediately drives into the fence. She gets her head under their chin. All this is good. And then she puts like 1,000 times the normal effort of putting head pressure against that person's jaw. Like she bunches up her shoulders and just smashes her forehead into this person's chin and tries really, really hard to put pressure under their chin. And it's like, it's too much. Just like hold the position and look for some opportunities. It's like everything Jessica Eye does, she like fully commits herself to that one thing. So if you're coming forward and she's out fighting, she's going to like step back and throw a 5-punch combination at you as you come in. And then that's where her technical issues come in too. Like Jessica Eye has had this consistent issue throughout her career of having her chin fly up in the air every time she throws a punch. It's a posture issue. She had a back injury when she was younger, so it could be from that. But she's vulnerable to being countered. And she kind of has different modes. Like she'll move her head, and then she throws, and it's not moving. She'll move her feet, and then she throws, and she's standing her ground. So like once Jessica Eye commits to attacking you, whether with in the clinch or with strikes, she becomes vulnerable. She's always vulnerable to being countered in any phase and at any range. And it's a kind of a tough call to just confidently say that Bethe Correia is the right person to take advantage of that. Bethe is not athletic by really any standard. Even for this division, she's not very athletic. She's got good stamina and everything, but really, like I think she has to work a lot harder than some of these other women to learn new skills and to dominate somebody in a fight. And that's why, like, she had so much trouble with Raquel Pennington. Pennington was able to beat her because if you're not athletic, Pennington's going to beat you. And it was really by being a better athlete, I think, that Pennington mostly won that fight, because Correia certainly had her moments. But she is making steady improvements as a fighter. People will laugh at this, but she even had a good game plan in the Ronda Rousey fight and just wasn't athletic enough to make it work. She went in there, she tried to stick and move, and that makes perfect sense. It's what Holly Holm did. She hit Ronda coming in, and then Ronda just ran her over like a semi. Like there was nothing she could do about it.
Yeah, you can't really stick and move if you can't move. Like that's kind of the other part of sticking and moving.
She tried, man. She had like a small pivot and like a 1-2, and she hit Ronda. I was like, this is smart. And then Ronda literally just stepped forward and smashed her into pieces. Yeah. So like that's going to happen for Bethe, I think, at least until she hits a certain level of skill. Until she hits that Michael Bisping place where she doesn't have to be quite as athletic as the rest of the division. And that could happen. She is very inexperienced. She's only been fighting for like 3 years now, 4 years. So she's got time to continue developing. I'm going to pick Bethe Correia. Again, consistency is key against Jessica Eye. Eye always has flashes of brilliance, but always seems to lose fights against people who know what they want to do against her. So, and really, she should be almost completely winless in the UFC. Like the Leslie Smith fight is the only one I think that was justified. She should have lost to Sarah Kaufman. I watched that recently, and I didn't remember it being such a robbery, but really, Sarah Kaufman beat her. She had 2 very good rounds against her, and she badly hurt her. And one of the judges inexplicably gave Jessica Eye a round in which she was staggered and on rubber legs for about half of it. So. Jessica Eye just can't seem to find a winning formula. And Bethe Correia, it'll be close, but I think Bethe Correia has her number.
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, is that part of it is maybe that she has the kind of confidence in herself, it seems, that, like, makes it to the point that she can't understand what she's doing wrong. Like, she can't see any of the flaws in her game. You know, you hear Jessica Eye talk about herself and, like, her game, and she's like, I'm amazing. Like, nobody is ready for me. And then lately, you know, after her last loss, she's like, things are going wrong, and I need to fix it. And it's kind of like, A, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to figure out how. And B, I don't, like, if you're starting to lose that confidence, like, that may be what drove you here. Like, I don't know if an unconfident Jessica Eye even has the functional, like, skill that she had, whatever she had, that brought her to the UFC.
Yeah, well, because I picked Eye over McMahon just because she was scrappy.
Yeah.
And then she wasn't scrappy in the fight.
No.
She wasn't, and that's kind of worrying.
Yeah. So, Odds on this are maybe then something to look at because Jessica I is favored minus 135 to minus 150. Bethe Correia is the underdog plus 110 to plus 128. And I think Correia is a good bet at those odds.
Maybe a small one. It's tough, man. Like it's tough to go in there and be like I haven't seen enough. I like Bethe a lot. I like her style. Yeah. I always like fighters who are like hard workers and go against an athletic deficit and win. So I have a soft spot for fighters like Bethe, but I can't go into this fight and be like she's gonna crush Jessica I.
Yeah, I mean, especially when her best wins in the UFC are Jessamine Duke and Shayna Baszler. Like a very close split
They're
decision
both washed out.
Kedzie that a lot of people thought she didn't win. But, Bethe Correia is not racking up these amazing high-level wins. It's just that Jessica I, like you say, I mean, the only legit win she may have in the UFC at all is she ripped Leslie Smith's ear off.
Mm-hmm. And the Pennington fight for Correia did look really good. She was solid. I thought that was actually a really good fight to go back and watch. It was entertaining, but she really had her moments against someone who has proven themselves to be a consistently tough test for like the lower half of the division. And she came off looking pretty good despite losing.
So let's go to the first card of the pay-per-view now. Jéssica Andrade versus Joanne Calderwood. And
this is a fight of the night right here, Zane. Is it my go?
Yeah, I think it is you.
This is fight of the night material. These two match up very well in terms of an exciting fight. It's like a two true out. Both things will end up happening. Like either Andrade overwhelms Calderwood early, or Calderwood kind of outcrafts her down the stretch. And I think both of those things are going to happen. I think Andrade is going to give Calderwood a lot of trouble. It's really fast. She throws a ton of volume, all power strikes. Pat Wyman said that she's the female John Lineker, and she pretty much is. Like, she doesn't feint, she doesn't jab, footwork's not that great. But anytime you expose yourself, anytime you throw, anytime your back is to the fence, she's going to unleash 10 punches. Head and body, she's just going to go for it. And she's powerful enough and determined enough to make you respect that. And like Lineker, I don't think Andrade is necessarily as powerful as she looks. It's the fact that she is just willing to attack all openings, doesn't give a damn if you throw back. She's got a fearsome attitude that allows her to hurt you as much as the actual weight of her hands, so to say. So Calderwood's a slow starter. She's like the female Donald Cerrone. She's got a little bit of difficulty in the early minutes, and I think Andrade is perfectly suited to take advantage of that. But I do think Calderwood is making small, steady steps in the right direction as a fighter. I think she's becoming a little more technical. She's improving her boxing bit by bit. Her footwork is getting a little better over time. And I think her confidence, the only time that her slow starting tendency really, really led to a loss was against Marina Moroz, and she was kind of messed up for that fight. She had personal things going on. She was not in the right place. Since then, she's looked very solid. Like Courtney Casey hit her, but Courtney Casey couldn't take advantage. Valerie Letourneau had some moments later in the fight, but Joanne Calderwood actually did a little better of coming out hot, and she finished very strong too. So she's improving. And I think that is why Joanne Calderwood wins, that ability to catch up as the fight goes on. But also I think Joanne Calderwood has a fairly substantial advantage in wrestling and grappling. That her level changes and her reactive takedowns, as well as her trips in the clinch, looked really solid against Letourneau, who has never been easy to take down. And Andrade, she has a purple belt, I think, in jiu-jitsu, but she is just not that great on the ground. She can't do it in the context of an MMA fight. She has some of that Kyle Magalhães thing going on where she's just jumping on you and going for it. And I recall the Marion Renault fight where she just dove into Marion Renault's triangle 2 or 3 times before getting tapped out by it. She kept going into the same position. Renault was not even hiding it, and Andrade just kept going for it. And I think pretty much all of Andrade's losses are submissions. No, only two. But her last two are submissions. And in all of her losses, she has been controlled on the ground. That is a certainty. Liz Carmouche, Marion Renault, Raquel Pennington. I believe in the Jennifer Maia fight as well. And I think as the fight goes on, Calderwood can do that. So I'm picking Calderwood. I could totally see Andrade knocking her head off in the first round. It's going to be tough for Joanne in the early going. But as the fight wears on, I think JoJo's going to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the big thing I think to me that's, like, I don't disagree with any of that. And I especially, like, obviously I would love to see Joanne Calderwood win because she's Joanne Calderwood, and who doesn't love Joanne Calderwood?
One of the most lovable fighters in the sport.
Yeah, but she is just, like, first of all, that Letourneau fight is kind of a mess. Like, because Letourneau's sports bra apparently was just falling apart.
If you watch that with that in mind, it was like coming off the entire fight.
Yeah. And like, being one of the perhaps better endowed female fighters in women's in the UFC, like, that was a big problem for Valerie Letourneau. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, my top doesn't fit well. It's like, okay, no, actually, like, I'm about to expose myself to a whole bunch of people in the middle of a fight. And it's hard to know what to take away from that. Like, on the plus side for Joanne Calderwood, it was extremely, extremely good to see her look confident again. Because when she's confident, she is creative. Mm-hmm. And she's one of the most creative, if not the most, well, one of the most, next to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, creative strikers in that division. Like, just the most willing to set up a wide variety of techniques and to throw things that people don't expect when they don't expect them. I'm just not sure that she's athlete enough to win these level of fights consistently. That's the thing. Like, her rise when she was coming up, she was not beating a lot of great athletes. Or when it was somebody like Norma Rueda Center, who was a pretty good athlete, it was somebody, it was Rueda Center's like third pro fight or something. Like, it was really, really raw fighters. And even Courtney Casey, that was a close fight where Casey was able to do a lot just by being bullish and strong and kind of overwhelming early.
Yeah.
And that Letourneau fight, like I say, it's hard to, like, how different would that fight have gone if Letourneau was not spending the entire fight trying to adjust her sports bra? Would Calderwood have had the same opportunities and openings to be that creative? Would she have had the time and space to do the things she did? And I don't think Andrade is going to give her that. Like, that's what I don't see. I just think that Andrade is just going to be faster. She's going to be faster, and she's going to be able to close Calderwood down because Calderwood's not, like, amazingly speedy on her feet and has a tendency when she's, even when she was, like I say, in, like, fighting Katja Kinkanpa or Seohee Ham, Calderwood has a tendency to just kind of wait and watch and let herself get hit, like, to just kind of throw something out there and let whatever's coming back at her hit her. And I think that just it plays too well for Andrade early, and I don't see. I think there's a level that Calderwood just is never going to pass because of athleticism, and I think Andrade is a good representation of that level.
I'll add two things just because this one is actually worth talking about. I think that watching her work was one thing that definitely saw some improvement in the Letourneau fight. Mm-hmm. That's the thing you can't take away. Even if Letourneau was not in the right place, like, Calderwood was not quite as willing to stand around after landing a shot. She was getting her hands back. She was changing angles. It took her a little while in the fight, again, to get that going. It was almost like her starting aggressively was kind of a bluff. Mm-hmm. Like, she's going to come at you, and she's not really comfortable, but she's going to make sure you don't get to take over the fight early. Again, as the fight went on, she got comfortable. That improved. The other thing is that I don't think Calderwood's going to beat Andrade at range. Not that well, because Andrade is probably – I mean, she might be hitting her with some good teeps and stuff like that, because Andrade does stand there and just kind of wait for you to throw without doing anything. But I think it's going to be the fact that Calderwood has a good clinch game, and that Andrade has not really faced anyone with a really solid clinch game that she has not lost to. And again, she's probably a lot stronger at strawweight, so I don't think it'll be like a big edge early. But the problem for Calderwood in the Letourneau fight, and what gave her difficulty in the second round of that fight, is that Letourneau was good in like a long range and mid range boxing, and Andrade is really going to be getting in very tight, giving up to Calderwood. So if Calderwood wants to grab her neck and pull her head down, she can probably do it. So that's why I like her, but it's a tough one.
I think I see Andrade being too strong at this weight and too fast for Calderwood to be able to control her well enough to do that often.
Could be, yeah. Andrade is really young, too. Like, she could make some really rapid improvements at some point. I didn't realize quite how young and inexperienced she was.
Yep. Andrade is very young. So that I expect to see Andrade keep improving as well in ways that Calderwood might not necessarily. I mean, not just because Calderwood's, 29 or whatever, but people to improve, but whatever. I just think the physical matchup isn't right for Calderwood, and that to me is just going to be too big a hill for her to reach the top, like to title challenger status, and it's going to be fights like this that end up being that barrier. Odds on this: Joanne Calderwood is the underdog, plus 125 to plus 110. Andrade is the favorite, minus 132 to minus 1.
Minus what was that?
Worth a bet at those odds, but obviously you would not. So they're probably
what were Andrade's odds there?
They're minus 140 or 132 to minus 145.
Yeah. I can see some. Honestly, I do feel like Andrade, just as a slight favorite, is probably a safer bet than Calderwood as a slight underdog.
Yeah, I think it's just like there's a very good chance she just comes out and puts a stamp on Calderwood early.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what is Andrade by knockout or by finish?
Andrade by KO. Let's see. Andrade inside the distance is plus 180. So,
I mean, if she wins, like, it's probably going to be an overwhelming thing. But again, like, maybe Calderwood.
It could be a round and a half each way. That could be also what we see out of this.
Yeah, because like if Morose didn't have her submission game, she probably wouldn't have finished Calderwood. Calderwood's very tough. She can take a beating early and come back. So, and Andrade doesn't really have that many knockout wins. So,
yeah, it could really be the case where Andrade starts early, puts banks the first round, starts out fast in the second round, hurts Calderwood again, and then gasses, and then Calderwood takes over, and you're looking at a second round where you're like, well, she hurt her early, and then she gassed. Who wins that round? And Calderwood won the third round. I don't know. So I still think Andrade is, to me, a slightly safer bet as a favorite, even just picking her to, get a finish. So you get underdog odds, but it's a very interesting fight. And that brings us to the next bout on the card: Urijah Faber, Jimmie Rivera, and I've forgotten whose turn it is.
I think it's yours.
Okay. I think this fight was a mistake for Urijah Faber. I mean, I don't think that Urijah Faber actually makes mistakes with fights, because most of what makes Urijah Faber special is his marketing, is being around, being seen, being remembered. Whether he wins or loses, people are still like, oh, I love Urijah Faber. Mm-hmm. So there's not really a lot of damage to that. But for a guy who's continually talking about retirement, I kind of have the feeling this is going to be one of those fights where he's like, this may be the fight where he's like, okay, maybe I didn't need to go out one more time for this one.
Mm-hmm.
The reasoning behind that is, obviously the Dominic Cruz and Frankie Edgar fights. I kind of feel like maybe Faber walked into both those not believing he could win them. And so he fought very safe fights. Like, he tried to fight Dominic Cruz hard early. I think he really believed, I want to beat this guy. He wanted to beat Dominic Cruz. And he came out.
He also had a very strange analysis. I think he said, like, he expected Cruz to be aggressive, and so he planned to counter, and then Cruz didn't do what he expected, so he went after him. I don't know what
going
Urijah.
after and brawling Dominic Cruz was the smartest thing he ever could have done.
Sure. And then he spent the rest of the fight doing what he planned to do, which is try to counterpunch Dominic Cruz.
Which was totally disaster.
Yeah.
Like, he actually got a little bit of work done going and turning it into a brawl and just making, like, not actually giving Cruz the time to feint and set up. Like, it just bull rushing him, being like, shit, you want to try and dance around me? I will run through you, and if I land, great. If you land, fuck it. And then then obviously Cruz landed and hurt him, and after that, Urijah was like, okay, you know what? Forget that. Let's just try to make it through this fight.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's not in those kind of fights, like when Dominic, and this is maybe just when Urijah Faber, and this may be the difference between contender Faber and challenger Faber, is when Faber is fighting down, he's a much more confident striker. Like, he's much more willing to just step in and throw hands. When it's not Renan Barão, when it's not Dominic Cruz, when it's not Jose Aldo, Faber tends to go after people. And against guys like Frankie Saenz and even Michael McDonald, that works really well for him. Like, when he's got a striking advantage, that works great. Or if he doesn't have a striking advantage, he can turn that into a wrestling advantage. He can take down Alex Caceres. He can take down and submit, or he can, out grapple Scott Jorgensen. But when he's fought, like in that Alex Caceres fight, in that Francisco Rivera fight, where he didn't have a clear striking advantage, he got kind of tagged up trying to be the aggressive striker.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmie Rivera is both a fighter that hits hard enough and is fast enough and brawls well enough that I think he can outstrike Urijah Faber in a way that Urijah Faber won't expect him to, an aggressive Urijah Faber. And he's a good enough wrestler that Urijah Faber is not going to take him down very easily. Like, against Frankie Saenz, Urijah Faber had to be the striker. Like, he couldn't get Saenz down and out-grapple him and out-wrestle him very well. And Saenz outworked him there a lot. And it ended up having to be Urijah Faber, depending on being the better striker, for a very rote Saenz who's still just not a very clean, confident striker, or is more confident than he has a right to be as a striker.
Sure, yeah.
And against Rivera, it's sort of like, Rivera's kind of a fire plug. Maybe you can take him down. Maybe. But he's made a whole career out of being impossible to take down and forcing guys to either just let him grind on them against the cage or later now brawl with him and deal with him as a huge power striker. And I think that kind of spells disaster for Urijah Faber. So I'm picking Jimmie Rivera, and I'm kind of willing to pick him by a knockout.
Mm.
It maybe won't happen, but I've seen Urijah Faber get stung lately, and
sure,
he'll just go into safety mode and ride out a loss against Rivera like he's done against so many fighters when he's gotten hurt. But I think he's confident enough that he can beat a guy like Jimmie Rivera that he might not.
Sure. There's a level of accuracy and timing you don't find in the rest of the division, but it's still not a great look to get dropped by Dominic Cruz 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like Faber can't be knocked out. He was knocked out by Mike Browne.
And by Renan Barão, even though people
true.
think that wasn't a real knockout.
I mean, I understand his argument, but he was definitely badly hurt. So, you know, like, and, I think, you know, I like, this has been my tack more and more often these days, is to realize how good Urijah Faber is while consistently waiting for the guy who's going to beat him. And I think we said similar things about Frankie Saenz. Saenz actually came kind of close, and Faber, as Faber always does, found some tiny opening where he could exploit and really change the tone of the fight. And I think that he may have lost that one if he hadn't really hurt Saenz really badly the way he did in the clinch. You know, it's just been like Urijah Faber is 37 years old. He's been fighting for ages. He's been a top 10 in his weight class for at least a decade. Have to give him credit for what he has done, but his game has not really changed or evolved in any marked way in a long, long time. The only time that it really developed was briefly under Duane Ludwig, and Faber was so uncomfortable, I think, having changed his approach and doing something different and not having his say, like not getting to run his team the way he wanted, that he got Ludwig out of there and promptly went back to being the same Faber we'd seen for 5 years or more. And so I agree. I think Jimmie Rivera is a good enough fighter to poke holes in that. Rivera can basically fight going any direction. He's a good counterpuncher. He's a very effective pressure fighter. He's really good at stifling and controlling you in the clinch, better than most Urijah Faber opponents. And Faber has won a lot of recent fights in the clinch, in those little scrambly interstitial places. And Rivera has not been taken down so far in the UFC. He has 100% takedown defense. He hasn't fought Urijah Faber, but Pedro Munoz is a very good wrestler, and he didn't have any trouble stopping Pedro. Pedro Munoz had some fully complete takedowns that Jimmie Rivera still popped right out of. He's got a very complete game. He throws good combinations. I think he's basically going to have a relatively close fight with Faber, where Faber finds some openings. Rivera has been stung. That could be a problem going forward. He was hurt by Munoz. He was dropped, though not necessarily hurt, by Alcantara, I think twice. So that could be a problem going forward, and Faber could very well find that opening and totally change this fight, save himself from that inevitable loss yet again. But I think it's going to be a fairly close fight where Rivera outlands Urijah Faber, throws more, is more accurate, more willing to exchange in the clinch and in the wrestling to keep Faber from taking over in those phases, and just like lands, 50% more strikes than him and wins the rounds. So I'm going with Rivera by decision. And Zane is frozen. Oh, there you go.
I think part of it too for me is that I've just seen Urijah Faber be it's Faber could hurt. If Faber hurts Rivera, I expect Rivera to keep coming after Faber.
Yeah.
Fully committed.
It's not going to change the way Rivera fights. It never has. So.
Yeah. If Rivera hurts Faber, I expect Faber to be much more willing to be like, you know what, I can just ride this out and take a loss. Like, we've seen
he's
that.
like, well, because Urijah Faber is like, I'll still be Urijah Faber when it's over. Like, it's not over, or I don't think he cares all that much anymore about these kind of fights. Like,
no.
Which is both a good thing and a bad thing. He goes into them relaxed and confident, but also like recently when things have started turning against him, it's kind of like, I lose sometimes. Yeah. I'm Urijah Faber. I'm 37. It's fine.
Yeah. And that's why I just kind of think it's like, this is maybe the fight where it's like, did you really want to fight Jimmie Rivera? Like, is that really what you came out of retirement? We're like, yeah, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to fight this dude who has almost no standing in the UFC whatsoever, but could beat me. Like, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Yeah. If he gets really starched, it'll be a long-standing point, I think. Be one of those things that people talk about for a while.
What, like the day Urijah Faber was knocked out by Jimmie Rivera?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't quite see it happening, man. Faber is tough. Faber is very, very tough. He is tough. Like Anthony Pettis. He doesn't get enough credit for his just sheer durability and toughness.
Yeah.
He can take a beating and not really be phased and not be too badly hurt. So I would be surprised if Rivera knocked him out. But no other result would really surprise me.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, the odds for this fight, Urijah Faber is the underdog. Can you believe it?
Mm.
It seems like we don't know something everybody else doesn't know.
Yeah. That's a really concise way of putting it.
Jimmie Rivera is the favorite, -120 to -140. Urijah Faber, the underdog, -110 to +118. And maybe
I don't know if
Urijah
Rivera's
Faber +118 is worth a bet because he finds a way to win so often.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really know that Rivera is worth a bet,
No.
even as a small favorite. It's a tough fight, man.
Like, I think Rivera will win, but I would be much more likely to be like, here's $1 on Urijah Faber because he'd find, you know?
Yeah.
And Rivera, the biggest knock against Rivera is that he really seems to kind of have one attack speed, and it's fast and it's powerful. So you kind of have to be willing to stand in. But better fighters, elite fighters at the top, are going to be able to start timing, being able to figure out the speed at which he's coming and attacking and pick that apart a little.
He's very tricky with his entries and how he begins, but once he starts attacking, it's like all power shots, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything is a very nice and steady power
even
shot.
As the fight went on, even Pedro Munoz was able to adapt and find some of the timing. On Rivera.
Yeah, Munoz countered him very effectively as that fight went on.
Yeah, so it's not like it's something that Faber can't do. It's just, like I say, Faber, his striking is very odd. Like, when he's got a small advantage as a striker, he turns it into a big advantage as a striker. A small disadvantage as a striker, it tends to feel like a much bigger disadvantage.
Yeah.
Like, when he's just a little worth, when it's him versus Renan Barão, you're like, what the hell can Urijah Faber do to possibly strike with Renan Barão? There's just no answer out there at all. And I kind of feel like he's on the slight disadvantage to Jimmie Rivera end of that, which could turn into being just what do I do against this guy? I guess I'll just hang out on the outside and wait for the fight to be over.
Yeah.
That brings us to CM Punk versus Mickey Gall, the people's fight. Break it down, Connor. I want an in-depth technical analysis.
This is not a fight for analysts. It's just not. It's the thing about it is I'll be a little forgiving to CM Punk. I'll say, Mickey Gall's not an unbeatable fighter. He's he's got some potential, I think, but at 2-0, there's not Gall is headed. And CM Punk, Phil Brooks, has been training with good fighters. He's probably got some really good preparation under his belt. He does have a little bit of a submission grappling background, doing the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu type of stuff for a few years. It wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if CM Punk won. The thing is that you can't. There's no reason to pick CM Punk. As an analyst, you have no footage really to look at except for some kind of unimpressive training footage from his documentary. You have no idea what his style as a fighter is. So you basically just have to, as analysts, we have to go off of the past to predict the future. We have to look at what we have available and try not to make too many conjectures and just look at the evidence. And the evidence is that Mickey May fighter and CM Punk is not yet. So you pick Mickey Gall. I'm going with Mickey Gall. I think the likely scenario is that CM Punk kind of has a rude awakening when he realizes how different training is from fighting. I think he probably thinks he's been very well prepared, but going in there, especially on the main card when the arena is packed of a big pay-per-view, in what I imagine will be a very rambunctious Cleveland crowd for Stipe Miocic, it's going to be a very different atmosphere. The pressure is going to be so much different from anything he has faced before. Mickey Gall seems like a kind of natural for that situation, and I don't know that CM Punk is, not with fighting. He hasn't had a chance to get comfortable with it yet, and it's quite a big debut for someone who has never fought before. So, Mickey Gall, I don't know that much about it, but what I do know is that Mickey Gall has experience, so I'm going with that.
Yeah, I would go as far to pick Mickey Gall by submission in round 1.
I picked him by first round TKO, but yeah, I can see either one.
Because, Gall's game really seems predicated off his back take ability. Like, he just seems like he wants to swarm you to the point that you either fall over, a clinch, trip, takedown, or something like that, and then just move straight into back control and look for a rear naked choke, or just pound away at you on the ground. And he's big, he's tough, he's aggressive. He's aggressive in that way that young fighters are when they haven't learned to be fearful of anyone at all. And that's the kind of thing that makes young fighters, like, that is the standard for watching good young talent. Like, when you're looking for prospects rising up, and I don't know that Mickey Gall is any kind of prospect. I said the other day on Twitter, Bellator undercards are full of dudes like Mickey Gall. They're full of dudes who have very, little notable external sporting experience aside from MMA, who are aggressive grapplers and who are big and willing to fight. Like, those dudes are a dime a dozen in MMA. We don't know what Mickey Gall's going to turn into. But they are, like, when you're looking for guys that, like, will this guy be any good? Could he be any good? One of the things you look for is just stupid fearlessness in young fighters. Are they willing to just charge after their opponent no matter what? Because that's something you can channel. You can channel that aggression as they go on. It's much harder to learn how to be aggressive than it is to learn how to check your aggression and be smart about it.
Mm-hmm.
And Mickey Gall, like, in fights like this, at the low end, that kind of unchecked aggression is like a free ticket to a lot of wins, because a lot of opponents out there, dudes like CM Punk, they're not going to be ready to have somebody bigger, stronger, and, younger than them just charge at them and be like, okay, hurt me. Can you hurt me? No? All right, I'm going to fuck you up now.
It's a test of discipline, and when you never fought before, it's probably not even a 50-50. It's like a 70-30 chance that you're going to get overwhelmed pretty easily. Yeah.
And so, I mean, CM Punk, like, I assume his game is going to be throw a couple strikes, kickbox, try to turn that into a double or single leg, and then look for back control. That seems to be all the footage, all the training footage he's showing out.
I don't think he's going to have a good time trying to grapple with Mickey Gall either. Like, if that's what he does try, like, Mickey Gall's not a bad grappler. He's pretty good. He, and largely because he's athletic, he's strong enough to compete even when his skill doesn't back him up, but that's definitely not his weak point.
Yeah. Mickey Gall, like, he looks to me like a back take specialist. Like, that's what he's trying to mold himself as a guy who flies at you, overwhelms you, grabs your back, and then tries to choke you out.
Yeah, we'll see.
And, no, that's what Mickey Gall. I mean, not CM Punk. CM Punk looks like he's trying to mold himself as a complete, well-rounded, all-terrain MMA fighter, which usually means being bad at everything. So
yeah, it does.
I actually think, like, I would be really surprised if CM Punk won this fight. Really surprised. And I don't think highly of Mickey Gall at all. Like, I think it was Mookie was like, I was like, Bellator undercards are full of guys like Mickey Gall, and I think it was Mookie was like, oh yeah, well, 95% of Bellator undercard guys probably also beat CM Punk. And I'm like, 95% is really generous. Like, most MMA fighters with any experience probably beat a guy who's never fought before and has no remarkable athletic ability or background to speak of.
I mean, debuting fighters beat 2-0 fighters. That happens pretty regularly, but the guy's 37. Yeah. I don't know. It's just hard to picture it happening. I think Mickey Gall, like, athletically, it's not like some random guy who's beaten two nobodies. Like, Mickey Gall is strong. He's aggressive. He comes from a pretty good camp, too. He's in Miller Brothers MMA with Dan and Jim Miller.
I mean, he's a little bit of some random 2-0 guy who's fought nobodies. Like, he really is. But I see what you're saying. Anyway.
You hate Mickey Gall, Zane. Why do you hate Mickey
Gall? I'm just like, people are, like, oh, he could be a real prospect, like a guy that could contend down the line. It's like, if he's in the UFC 2 years from now, I will be impressed by Mickey Gall.
There's no reason to think anything really of Mickey Gall just yet. We should avoid letting our disinterest or our unimpressiveness about CM Punk, that doesn't make sense, but the fact that we're unimpressed by CM Punk or don't expect much should not let us believe that Mickey Gall is like the opposite end of that.
The fact that Mickey Gall is much better than CM Punk does not make him any different than any of the other 550 fighters on the UFC roster.
Yeah, and to be clear, we don't know that Mickey Gall is. We just have no reason to believe that he isn't.
The odds on this express that reasonably well. Probably as high as you could ever hope to get as a 2-0 fighter. If they got higher, they'd be a little ridiculous. Mickey Gall is a favorite, minus 355 to minus 500. CM Punk, the underdog, plus 374 to plus 315 or 300 actually. And that, like I say, on a 2-0 fighter, you don't want to get more than minus 500.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to the co-main event: Fabrício Werdum versus Travis Browne. And I don't know that we saw this fight pretty recently, and I don't know how much has changed since then. Like, neither guy has switched coaches. Fabrício Werdum got knocked out for the first time in his career, which was pretty shocking. But otherwise, I think 2 years ago Travis Browne was still with Tarverdian, or was that right before he?
That was his last Jackson.
Okay, it was his last Jackson Wink fight. Well, that's even less incentive to comfortably. I was watching Travis Browne's fight with Cain Velasquez because I hadn't actually seen it, and you can see like he's still got some pop. He has the kind of power on single strikes that, given the way Werdum got knocked out, like there's obviously a good puncher's chance in there for Travis Browne, but there's still no consistency of approach whatsoever. Like there was a sequence in that Cain Velasquez fight where he threw like 3 left hands in a row, like, sort of like that kind of a jab double hook with his chin leaning out over his feet at Cain Velasquez. And it's just like, what are you doing? Like, that's a terrible idea.
He doesn't, man. He doesn't.
And that's the kind of thing that Werdum can still capitalize on. Like Werdum, even in that terrible Stipe Miocic fight, Werdum is a pretty consistent dude for how he's approaching the fight.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some tendency to shell away from coming up and not return fire that well. But his approach to offensive striking is pretty consistent, like this 1-2, get to the clinch, land a hard knee, trap you against the cage, find ways to grapple you to the ground, maybe shoot. It's a very, like, systematic range boxing, power kicking to Muay Thai to grappling approach that Browne's just like, well, here's a knee, here's a straight right hand. Here's a 3-punch combo. I don't know, whatever.
He still has that Mike Winklejohn problem in his head of like, if I just throw different things, the other guy won't see them coming. And it's like, well, what if the other guy doesn't wait for you to throw and he just hits you when you start to throw something? He has yet to find a solution to that problem. Yeah,
and I don't see anything out of Tarverdian's camp that like is improving or changing upon that, other than giving him like worse boxing based footwork that doesn't make sense for MMA. That seems to be the like major implementation of the Tarverdian style on fighters is like, here's some really crappy footwork that does not translate to MMA at all. So Browne could get lucky. Werdum could be fading. But I just don't see like round by round Travis Browne having the answer to Fabrício Werdum. So I'm picking Werdum.
Yeah, there's no reason to think this fight really goes any differently other than the fact that Werdum got knocked out by Miocic. But, you know, it could mean like Verdum's old, could be done. But also it was a very strange fight for Werdum. You got to think that the fact that he decided to come back, he's probably a little more focused this time around. He's refocused himself a bit. And, you know, I think Travis Browne's a little bit of a bully. Like, I think he's really used to being so huge and powerful that people just kind of shy away and he can stop anything. And then that was the first time we saw, wasn't that Fabrício Werdum fight, how that doesn't work like past one round. Like Travis Browne starts to get tired, the other guy's still there, and he really runs out of ideas. And confidence just kind of skyrocketed.
The fight he had with Matt Mitrione was kind of beating him up before he started poking him in the eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Werdum's confidence kind of skyrockets in those situations. Like, I think Werdum is a guy who relishes seeing his opponents break. And so, like, the moment he sees Travis Browne, like, getting frustrated or start posturing, that was the moment in their first fight where he went after Travis, shattered him. And I think he'll do the same thing here. I can't count out a guy like Travis Browne. I didn't even count him out in the Cain Velasquez fight, and that one was, I think, more lopsided than this, just because he's very powerful. He's got pretty fast hands, and it's heavyweight, you know. And Werdum, more fragile perhaps than Cain at this point. But, you know, Werdum won last time. They're pretty much the same fighters they were then with a few minor changes, but stylistically, Werdum still has the edge. Yeah,
no good changes in Browne's side. And
not really.
We don't really know what changes might be happening for Werdum after that Miocic or like that Miocic fight. You're right; it was a bit weird, but before it got weird, it was still Werdum fighting a very like consistent, popping, probing, you know, landing unexpectedly like good straight hard shots that you don't think he can.
I think he tried to force the "I'm going to break you" moment. Like, yeah. He was like, all right, this is taking too long, and he got impatient, and he was like, all right, I'm going to cow you. I'm going to run you down and make you realize that you don't belong in here with me. And Miocic is just like, think, just bopped him with a right hand and put him away. But typically, he waits for the person to start fading, and then he's like, all right. He gives him some of those fuck you kicks and punches. So
yeah. So on that note, Werdum is the favorite, minus 199 to minus 260. Browne, the underdog, plus 190 to plus 160. I'm actually pretty happy with those odds. It's heavyweight, drifting way above plus or minus 200, especially with guys who have won as much as both Browne and Werdum have at the UFC level.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Browne did drop Werdum in their first fight.
Yeah. Like, Werdum has a habit of bad starts, of getting hurt early. And speed, I'm not counting Browne out. It's just, like I say, if I'm looking over 15 minutes, if I'm looking at Browne not getting that flash KO, then I'm looking at Werdum winning rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what it comes down to for me. And it's not like Browne is unhurtable somehow, you know?
No. He's proven to be actually quite hurtable.
Yeah.
He's a normal heavyweight. His chin is not amazing.
Yeah. So, I'm not unhappy with the odds. I don't think there's a lot of play in them, honestly. But Werdum's the favorite, as he should be. And that brings us to the main event, Stipe Miocic versus Alistair Overeem.
So my main question for this fight, Zane, is because I think we all basically know the basic parameters here. Like the basic parameters that make this one kind of tough to call, at least from Overeem's perspective, are that Overeem is kind of a glass cannon. He has a tendency to get hurt even more than like Andrei Arlovski. He's got that even more than the normal heavyweight. He can be put away with a single shot. And Stipe Miocic is more durable. And of like gassing badly or falling apart partway through a fight. So that makes, I think that alone is enough for a lot of people to pick Miocic. I'm looking at the style matchup though, and Alistair Overeem has had a really nice renaissance of late by completely changing the way he does things. And we've talked about this a lot on Heavy Hands, but I think it's really brilliant because he has changed. I think he's probably still got a bully in there, but he's changed his methods of bullying so that he doesn't end up undermining his own success. Before, Overeem would tire himself out. If Overeem couldn't finish you down, just tees and elbows and short punches, if he couldn't, so exhausted that his own confidence was shattered. You know, like he would end up making himself feel like now he couldn't win the fight. That was his old bullying style. He would smash you against the lockers and try to beat you up. And now he's a different kind of bully. Now he's like hitting your mailbox with a baseball bat and driving away. Now he's like throwing a pee-filled water balloon at you and running off. Now he's like spitting on you from a 10th story window. Like, it's still bullying. He's still like doing his best. In his head, I think he's still like trying to make you look bad, trying to show how much better than you he is. He still relishes that, but it's not in a way that the other person can capitalize on as easily. He's not in range to be hit as often.
And we lost Connor briefly, as happens so often. But he's talking about the new bully of Andrei Arlovsky. All right, you're back.
I'm back. It's not in a way that can be capitalized on as easily, and it's not in a way that takes itself apart. It's not an approach where by doing this, it seems that Overeem, like, it's sustainable. Overeem can do it for a few rounds at least. 3 rounds against Roy Nelson without much trouble. 2 rounds, 1.5 rounds against Junior Dos Santos. I have more faith in this Overeem going a 5-round distance than I do the other one by a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at that change and I ask myself, when has Stipe Miocic fought an outfighter? Ever? When has he ever fought somebody who is like sticking and moving as their primary mode of attack, who's using a lot of kicks, who's dancing around, who is making him chase? So someone who can really easily stop takedowns and even counter them both with the clinch game and with some serious submission skills. When has Miocic faced this exact kind of threat? And he really hasn't. The last time he fought somebody who was decent from long range was Junior Dos Santos. Is much easier to corner and trap than Overeem is. Much easier to hit, more willing to. And then there was Stefan Struve, and Miocic actually did start to tire in that fight, and then he slipped and Struve knocked his head off. So there's a lot of numbers to draw from with Alistair Overeem. He is actually the most, in terms of fights, he's the most experienced fighter in the UFC's heavyweight division. He may be the most experienced fighter in the UFC. He's got 56 fights. He's got a dozen more at least than the next 2 most experienced guys, who are Josh Barnett and Andrei Arlovsky. And he's been fighting since 99. Now, there's good and bad things about that. You know, like, the fighting is not a forgiving game. You can't stick with it forever. But I think that this approach is a really good one to give Overeem that last little spurt of longevity that he would need to make a run at the title, which he's doing now. And so Miocic has fought like less than a third as many times. He hasn't, or about a third as many times. He hasn't fought nearly as much, and he hasn't faced the range of opponents that Overeem has faced. So that experience has let us see Overeem get knocked out a lot. But again, like Miocic, nobody was talking about Miocic like this incredible world beater 2 years ago. You know, he hasn't cemented himself as he's cemented himself as a top heavyweight today, but he hasn't cemented himself the way Overeem has as one of the best heavyweights the sport has ever seen. So I think Overeem is going to pick him apart a little bit. And I don't think Miocic is going to be as comfortable when he actually has to chase a guy around. I think it's going to be less forgiving kind of fight for him. So I'm going with Alistair Overeem. I think it'd be like a 2nd or a 3rd round knockout.
I am shocked, but I disagree. But, I think your points are well made, and I can't really counter the dynamic of those. I think the big thing for me, first of all, I'm a little worried that I saw, Overeem's fight with Andrei Arlovski. Overeem looked a little less like the dynamic. He like his hand speed looked slower. His ability to dart in and out of range in comparison to his fights with Roy Nelson and Junior Dos Santos looked less. Like he looked a little less able physically to do the things that he was doing a year ago, the style he's built himself. Worry to me. I don't know, that may be a specific fight thing where like maybe he was injured in camp, maybe he couldn't train that hard, who knows? And it'll be, this fight he'll come back, he'll have trained harder for a title fight, he'll have had a better ability to, a better camp for it.
You there, Zane? You there? Can I break? There you go. You cut out for a good little while there. You said maybe he will have trained better for it.
Okay, fucking hell. Maybe he'll have trained better for it. Maybe he'll have had more money for the camp. Maybe he'll have had maybe it was just a one camp thing. Maybe it's just something he'll come back for this fight and he'll look in amazing shape and he'll look absolutely stellar. Or maybe it's the cost of having 50 fights and slowly climbing towards 40.
Yeah, and if you count his kickboxing career, it's closer to 80.
Yeah. And in that Arlovski fight, as something that happened in the Nelson fight too, really didn't happen in the JDS fight, which remains now a weird blip on the record of Junior Dos Santos. Like, Junior Dos Santos has never looked worse than he did in that fight against Alistair Overeem. But, like, Overeem still has this habit where if you hit him once clean,
getting all kinds of internet issues out of nowhere now. What the fuck? You there, Zane? You there? You there?
Let's see if that helps at all.
All right, you're back now.
I'm back now. Okay.
If you hit him once.
So if you hit him once, if you can track him down, if you can hit him clean and get after him, he'll shell up. Like, this has been a thing that he's done repeatedly over time and has never quite gone away. Like, even the new look Overeem, like in that Roy Nelson fight, he got stung a few times. There were a few times where it looked like Roy Nelson was going to knock him out. And in that Andrei Arlovski fight early, he just kind of leaned against the fence and let Arlovski tag him a few times. And that's the thing, like, more than Nelson and Arlovski, who are both aging and have to fight with a lot more reserve, I think that's just something he can't afford to do with Miocic. Like, I don't think he can afford to, like, be from the outside if he's also, when Miocic comes after him, just going to shell up. Because I think Miocic, right now, he's in a point in his career, he's got the confidence, he's built the game, where he really relishes that opportunity. Where, like, the moment you start giving him a license to hit you, he will find ways to hit you hard. Better than, like I say, I think some of the, with guys like Arlovski and Nelson, some of these veterans that Overeem has been fighting, they have to be a little more conservative when they are, even when they get a good shot, it's like, okay, I couldn't put him away in 2 punches. I really need to take a step back and make sure I don't punch myself out right now. I can't run on that aggression like I used to when I was younger. And when
I think there's something in Overeem that he does better when he's against the odds, though. Like, I think when Overeem, pretty much when he's been like heavily favored, or the narrative has been he's going to destroy this guy's too slow, not good enough, whatever, that's when he's had his really bad losses. Like by the time he fought Roy Nelson, everyone was like, well, Roy could knock him out, and the odds were pretty close. And so he fought pretty carefully. Junior Dos Santos, people really expected Junior, like pretty overwhelmingly expected Junior to win, and it was one of Alistair's greatest performances ever. So I don't know. I think there's always fluctuations. Overeem has never been a consistent fighter from one fight to the next, not for long stretches of time. He's changed up his style many times. But I'm not confident that Stipe Miocic is going to be able – and let's not forget, like it's not just going to be Overeem has to stick and move for 5 rounds. Overeem can knock Stipe Miocic out for sure.
Oh, sure.
He's absolutely a dangerous puncher, and Stipe is not going to have his wrestling to fall back on. Not like he does other opponents. Like Overeem is not easy to out-wrestle. He will hurt you when you try, and he is very good on the ground. But I see what you're saying. It's tough, man. It's a tough one to call. Like I'm an Ohio native. I'd be very happy to see Stipe Miocic win, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's Alistair Overeem. It's not like I'm picking like Cain Velasquez or someone here who's like got a really reliable record. I just think stylistically, I'm not sure that Stipe can actually fight a long-range boxing. Just like with Junior, when Junior fought Alistair, no one else had ever fought a mobile outfighting game against Junior Dos Santos. And it gave him real problems because he was used to being that guy. Stipe is used to being the boxer. He's used to being the outfighter. I think it may be a rude awakening for him.
The other big reason that I like Stipe in this, though, is that, like I say, with Overeem's habit of shelling when he starts to get hit and not returning fire well, Miocic is one of the few heavyweights in this division up at the top who does a really actively good job of stepping away, creating angles, and counterpunching as people try to swarm him.
Yeah.
And I was watching that Overeem Arlovsky fight, and there were a couple moments where Overeem stepped in and threw a couple of just kind of slow, sloppy punches charging at Arlovsky with his head out, and is just man, watching that and thinking about how Miocic, especially that Miocic Werdum fight, it's just that's exactly the kind of thing Miocic wants. Is he wants somebody to come at him throwing a couple of charging ahead just punches. And Alistair Overeem, for as great technical kickboxer as he is, leading with combinations with his hands has never been the highlight of Alistair Overeem's kickboxing skill.
Mm-hmm.
He was always a counter kickboxer who was looking to load up and hit you with a big hook.
Yeah,
as you tried to come in on him.
And I think his kicks are probably his best asset in MMA these days.
His kicks and his knees. He's still got that awesome knee clinch game.
Yeah.
But now part of this thing that he's doing now, where he is sticking and moving, is that he's trying to lead a little more with single flurries. He's coming in, throwing a flurry, getting out. And I think that works with a lot of guys, but if he's a step slower, Miocic is not going to stand there and just let him do that without returning fire. So
good point.
That's where I'm picking Miocic. I think that Overeem's going to overextend, give him too many opportunities. And when he does, when Miocic does crack him, Overeem's going to shell up and let Miocic continue to build momentum. So I got to pick Stipe here. I don't necessarily think, I don't think Stipe is going to be champ forever. The heavyweight belt changes hands too much. And as you say, Miocic hasn't really established himself as this all-time great, potential long-lasting heavyweight. And as much as we thought Cain Velasquez might be that guy, we've seen how quickly, for a lot of fighters, how quickly fighting in that division can wear on you. Some dudes last forever. Some dudes just fall apart. And we don't know where Miocic is. He's not way younger than Alistair Overeem. He's 34. He just has a lot less fights. So odds on this fight, Miocic is the favorite, -120 to -149. Overeem, the favorite, +128 down to -105. I'm not unhappy about that. It's a very close fight. Both these guys have knockout power. He has been on a great run, so I think Miocic should be the favorite because he does have the durability. He has perhaps the greater gas tank.
When's the last time a champion was not the favorite anyway?
Yeah.
Like, the guy wins the title, he beats the supposedly best guy in the division. He deserves to be the favorite.
Yeah. But they're close odds, and they're deservedly close for a heavyweight fight. So any
one at this level. It's a high level. Like Pat was saying this to me the other day, but like because the heavyweights are slow and awful and everything, we know that, but that leads us to not giving enough credit to the very top of the division. And the upper crust of heavyweights, they don't have those problems. They don't like easily gas. They're not slow. They're not clumsy. There are some good fighters up there, and this is a high-level heavyweight fight, which means we get the high stakes that make heavyweight so enduringly popular with what should be an actually satisfying display of technique and skill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that Arlovsky-Barnett fight was fucking awesome.
Sure, yeah.
You know, it was a great fight. So this fight should be great, too. Like, I'm expecting a good, fun fight. And it'll be an interesting stylistic matchup. Miocic is going to have to, you know, when the opportunities present themselves, he's going to have to take them. I think that's the big thing. Is it if when Overeem opens himself up, if Miocic isn't countering, if Miocic does not hit Overeem when Overeem attacks, then we could really see Miocic in trouble. So, on that note, any final thoughts on odds, bets, card itself?
Not really. It's not a super bettable card.
No, really not. If you maybe still sick, still maybe a few chance bets on like the Urijah Faber Jimmie Rivera fight, or on Calderwood Andrade is now. Maybe Bethe Correia as an underdog.
Maybe it's all chancy. Like,
it's all
you heard analysis.
Chancy.
If you like a few, but most of the odds are pretty accurate, and so it's hard to find value.
Yeah. On that note, then, you can find me on Twitter at DZaneSimon. You can find Connor on Twitter at BoxingBush, BUSCH. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. Give the video a thumbs up on YouTube. That helps us a bunch. And subscribe to MMANation.com. That's DOTCOM over on YouTube. It's our YouTube channel. That way you get all the latest, greatest MMA Nation content, shows, analysis, interviews, all that good stuff. We'll be coming at you with sixth round after the fights, knuckle up, diving right back into the schedule for next week, where we'll have Fight Night Poirier versus Johnson in Hidalgo, Texas. That should be a fun card. I'm just seeing right now it looks like they've signed Rick Glenn to fight on that card against Evan Dunham. So breakdown. And should be a good time. So we'll be back for that. See you next time. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Bye.